Hi everyone, my name is Tim Savage and I am the immediate past president of the Orchestra of Northern New York, and I'd like to welcome you to this segment of Behind the Scenes of ONNY. Today we have a wonderful musician from the organization. Her name is Lia Call from Theresa, New York. ONNY Violist, member of ONNY's Watertown Advisory Committee, and the 7th and 8th grade orchestra teacher at Indian River Central School. Welcome, Lia.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Thanks for being here. I wonder if you might tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to perform with the Orchestra of Northern New York.
So about me is I grew up in Cazenovia, like a little south of Syracuse, and I started playing viola in public school, like in 4th grade. And I didn't really anticipate it would become such a huge part of my life, but it sort of organically morphed into that, and music has just always been a big part of what I do. So anyway, I had a good time with it in high school, ended up thinking this might be something fun to do for life, and so I went to Crane and heard about ONNY. You graduate college and then like, what do you do with yourself? So I went to a couple ONNY concerts and was like, wow, these guys really are that good, and then was fortunate enough to link up with them as a musician, as a performer. So that's the...
Very cool. How long have you been playing with the orchestra?
Something I should have thought of before this.
No, that's all right.
I'm not sure, 4 years, 5 years?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, wow.
You're an accomplished violist. When were you drawn to that instrument and why?
I chose viola because my older sister played violin, and at the time we walked to school, and I couldn't handle violin like my older sister, but walking with a cello seemed a little out of reach, so viola it was. And you know, the more time you spend with it, I really liked it because the viola goes everywhere. In an ensemble, you are everything. Like, you can be with the melody, you can be with the harmony, you can be with the bass. I mean, I love the way it interacts as an ensemble component. And as a solo instrument, it's just beautiful. So really, it was kind of like a happy accident to get there and then sticking with it. And then there's viola pride, so you have to, you know, that really drew me in too. So it truly all around fit me very well.
Awesome. You've been engaged with ONNY for several years in different capacities. Please share a bit about all the ways in which you have been involved with the orchestra.
The first and most moving way for me was just to relax and sit as an audience member and enjoy. Because I think as musicians, at least I have found, you don't do that enough because you're playing a lot, which is fun and rewarding in its own right, but I really enjoyed just going and letting it kind of wash and cleanse you, really. It's like, oh, this is just so rejuvenating. And then was fortunate enough to be asked to perform with ONNY, and that was a whole nother level of just, wow, I can't believe I am this lucky to get to keep doing this after college, to keep playing at this level. And teaching is certainly my first love, and that's what I really live for. So playing with ONNY is icing on the cake for me. Just that I thought, how could you ever hope to, you know, really focus on being a public school teacher and also be lucky enough to play music of this caliber with these people? So that's just, I almost don't remember your question, but that's really, that's really what drew me in. And then over time, someone asked me to be on the Watertown Advisory Committee, and I thought, this is a good way for me to support the orchestra where I live beyond just playing, because my husband and I chose to make Watertown our home, and I love that ONNY's a part of Watertown. You know, we spend so much time in the North Country driving around, but this is here and it's a part of the community. So I thought this is a way for me to help give back a little bit and try to help ONNY expand and flourish here.
Well, you certainly have done that. Your husband is John Goloski, and he's the chair of the Watertown Advisory Committee and also a music teacher at Indian River Central School. And you folks have been responsible for bringing 50 to 60 Indian River Central School students to several of our concerts.
We are very fortunate to be, there are most districts, I think, almost all in the North Country, very supportive of the arts, but you really have to tip your hat to Indian River. They have always put it right on the front. Yep, let's get this to happen. And just even to be able to bring those students to ONNY with the support of the school and the support of ONNY, it just all really came together nicely, as it should, because that's what we're here to do, I think.
Well, it doesn't just happen, and you and John have been responsible for actually getting those kids on the bus and in those.
They love it. Oh, they get dressed up, you know, we have to hit
wonderful.
McDonald's. And I think what really, I don't want to jump ahead in your questions, but one moment that really was like, oh, I'm in the right place, doing the right thing, and I feel good about everything right now, was the last ONNY concert. I know for the musicians sometimes, a lot of times, you want to go back and just relax or catch your breath. But after the last concert, or maybe it was intermission, the Young Attack concert last October, the kids were over the moon about the soloist, and Ken Andrews, the conductor, and the soloist, Young Attack, were gracious enough to let some of the kids come backstage and get autographs, and the kids lost it. And just watching the kids interact with the conductor and this woman who played so beautifully, it's not like these kids are going to grow up to be professional musicians, maybe one or two, but that's not the point. The point is they're watching these people do something incredible, and it's inspiring, like, well, if they can do that, what else could I do? And they may not even be thinking that consciously, but just to go be around those people, and that Ken and Young Attack and all these other musicians are just smiling and supporting these young musicians who are still doing like quarter notes, you know, and like the ABCs of music. That to me was like, okay, this is we're doing all right.
That's special stuff.
Yeah, just one, you know, that might be the only time they ever go to a symphony concert. Ever, you know?
It may be, but we hope and trust that you.
We hope not.
We hope and trust that you getting them there so they can have that experience.
Yeah.
Will make them future audience members for
or just
our or other orchestras.
Yeah, have an appreciation for something that's maybe a little outside of their prior experience. You know? Yeah.
What are some of the rewards and challenges that you have experienced as an active member of the ONNY family?
Well, I would say selfishly the biggest reward is getting to play. I just love it. It feels so good. It's so hard to put into words, and it's so rare that you have to put it into words. It's just the feeling of being there with that caliber musician and making music. You're a part of that music, and I don't know. So the biggest reward for me is playing. I just really love it. And as we were talking about with just being able to connect some, you know, kids to music. And it's not, I mean, there's a lot of other people in Watertown who work really hard to connect students to music. But for me, my role with ONNY, playing and then being able to like create a little bit of a bridge there has been rewarding. I think the biggest challenge when I think about ONNY is it's such a hidden gem, or at least for me it was. It took me a while when I moved here, even though I had come from Crane, it still took a while to really link up with where are the concerts, when are the concerts, and that could possibly be because I'm not so great with social media and stuff like that, but I think the North Country is so spread out and so rural in many ways. There are things that get past people that I know they would love if it was more to the forefront, but we have Rebecca Weissman doing some social media, and the ONNY board, being a part of the Watertown Advisory Committee, has really opened my eyes to how amazing the human resources are for ONNY, most of which are volunteer. So I think that's a challenge that's really being addressed, but in my view, that would be the biggest hurdle to climb, is just getting the word out that this exists and it's here.
That ties right into my next question. You have also been a member of ONNY's Watertown Advisory Committee for a few years, and last year took on the role of committee secretary as well. What does the committee do, and why do you serve in that group?
My impression of the Watertown Advisory Committee's desire is to help ONNY flourish in Watertown and figure out what does the area need or want, or how can we match what ONNY can offer with what the area would like to see offered, or the easiest place to get people in the door to play. Like we did a JCC concert with Harry Potter a couple years ago, which I know for a lot of musicians was like, well, the sound at Trinity is so good. It's like, yes, but there's people who might relate to JCC, or they know it better. So I think for the Watertown Advisory Committee, that's part of our goal, is to figure out how do we balance that equation. And just help Watertown enjoy ONNY and find more ways to connect the knowledge that we have this amazing orchestra here and it's ours. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you and John and all of the members of the committee have done a great job of getting us boots on the ground here and gaining traction, and we really appreciate that. What is your favorite performance venue and why?
This one, I thought about this question. I think a venue is twofold, for me anyway. It's the sound, the acoustics, and the way you feel as a musician when you play there, but then it's also the energy of the venue. Like there's the energy of the audience and the people, and it's just a special place. So as far as a musician, I must confess, I really love playing on Hosmer Hall in Potsdam because it's so alive. You are just so tied into everything. I just love it. It's stunning. As far as the audience, I really, really love playing at the Clayton Opera House because it's so intimate with the audience. I don't know, it's just a deeper connection. You don't even have to talk, and you don't talk because you're making music, but I I really enjoyed that. And I think as a community member, so as a performer, it's Hosmer. As trying to connect with the audience and just enjoying their energy, it would be Clayton. And I think as somebody who just lives here, I really do like Thompson Park, just because you see everybody together, and I like being outside. That's not really a great straight answer, but I think ONNY has really hit the jackpot of all, even playing at JCC with the lights of the Harry Potter show. That was really cool. And I don't know, we can't go wrong. I think there's a lot of beautiful places to play, and there's a lot of untapped places that we might find ourselves in the future. Just trying to navigate whatever the future holds.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It gives insight into a number of venues. Last year, you created an amazing PowerPoint presentation for a donor reception following one of ONNY's Watertown concerts. What was your goal in developing this piece?
So the presentation was intended to be something that people could look at and get a little information while they were just getting to know ONNY on a personal level, sitting around a table with somebody else, and you might keep an eyeball on this presentation, which had information about what does ONNY do exactly. And so it's easy to talk about it, but when you see numbers or images, it makes it a little more real that ONNY is here and it's in our community. So my goal with that was to try to make it much, like a little more concrete for people who are just getting acquainted with ONNY, about how much we really are here. So if you were somebody that didn't know a lot about ONNY and then maybe sitting and reading some of that or absorbing some of that information, you could see that actually ONNY really is a part of Watertown. It's part of the fabric. It's, whether or not classical music is exactly your cup of tea, ONNY covers the bases. The concert in the Thompson Park for 4th of July, though that might be a doorway in for somebody to experience more of it, but I felt like it was important to introduce ONNY to somebody who maybe doesn't know it beyond just the 1 or 2 concerts that they like. So,
now for a time that was on our website and I believe on our social media. I don't know if it is there presently, but it might be a good idea for us to bring that back so people can take a look at the work that you've done.
Well, and the very truth is, that is by no means a finished product. It's a starting point that anybody could continue to modify just to try to get, frankly, the word out to tackle that challenge of how do, when I ask my own friends here, some of them know about ONNY, but they wouldn't if not from me talking about it. Yeah. So the more places that information gets out, especially for military families who they're here, and we really want ONNY to cross their radar. Well, not just ONNY, other opportunities like this, but it's such a beautiful thing. And I know I've talked to parents at school who said, what? A symphony orchestra? So the hope would be that we can continue to spread our wings so that this would cross their path organically.
Nice.
But
as you know, the ONNY board canceled all of its concerts in 2020 because of the pandemic. How has COVID-19 affected you as a musician?
Definitely made me appreciate the connection of playing with people in person, for sure. As a musician, a lot of the projects that I was working on for myself as a musician really got paused because my teaching responsibilities, frankly, just got a little overwhelming. And it's not, everybody had challenges and got overwhelmed, but you have to look at it and say, okay, right now, what's the most important thing? And for me, that was making sure that the teaching was, taken care of and in line. And so I think as a musician, it's decreased the amount of time I was able to put into my own personal projects. And there was chamber music that got paused just because it's possible. A lot of people do it virtually. And so much time was spent as a teacher learning a lot of new technology, and you were just inundated with it. So I hit my max. But I will say, as a musician, whatever I paused with some of the classical stuff I was doing, I picked up with fiddling with friends outdoors because you're outside and a lot of it's memorized anyway, so you're not playing. So it kind of, pushed me to explore stuff that I haven't been doing as much as a musician, but it certainly made me appreciate and miss very much that, chamber music, duets, just playing. So. Yeah,
well, you adapted there, and in your teaching, I have to say, I observed you guest conduct a junior high all-county orchestra a couple years ago, and I was just riveted by your teaching skills, your enthusiasm, your musicianship. And I know that when we went remote last March, it was just such a quick adaptation, need to adapt if we were going to retain any kind of connection with our students. How did you do that? How did you feel that went?
Well, I did the best I could. And you know, it's very easy. And I think one of the challenges of the spring of 2020 was the constant second guessing. For me, it was, am I giving them enough material without overwhelming them? And that's really different for every child in every household. Everyone has such a different circumstance, and at least at school you can kind of level the playing field. Yep. And you can also, when you're in front of a student, kind of gauge, do they need a little more? Do I need to back off a little bit? And virtually, it was really, really hard. You know, I mean, it was really hard. So I tried to be a stable, consistent presence for the students in what I offered them. I tried to keep, I don't want to say assignments, because our school, you know, we had guidelines for how to grade and how to talk about that. But for what we offered as far as content material, try to keep it short, try to keep it to the point, try to keep it to a level where most every ability could feel successful with it. But I think that's what I missed the most, was that in person it's easier to design something to assess where they're at and say, well, this task would be a challenge for them and a good opportunity for growth, but with a very high chance of success. And online, it is much harder to gauge, you know, how can I design something that's going to help you grow without overwhelming you? So yeah, a lot of videos, they must be so sick of seeing my face, but I felt like it was really important, you know, to connect as much as you could in that way. And I think to have a lot of grace, or try to have a lot of grace with kids who just weren't comfortable doing a Google Meet, or they were overwhelmed, or mom and dad are working and you're 12 and you're just kind of done with it. So how do we hold students to a high standard? In person, I feel great about that, but online it's much more challenging. So I at least felt good about being engaged, being available, and trying to be responsive. Every June we have an Orchestra Olympics that's really fun at the end of the year, and it's a lot of different orchestra activities. And a student suggested we do it online, and I had previously just X'd that off in my head, and when he said it, it's like, yeah, come on, you know, chop chop, let's get to it. And we did it online, and the kids who participated, it was really fun for them, and it actually, just his simple suggestion was like, yeah, you can't give up on everything just because it's going to look a lot different than what it's ever been. We get so tied into, I do anyway, the plan. I have a plan and it's like organized, and I like that, but I think as hard as COVID has been, it's, especially as a teacher, you have to let go of those things, and it's a little freeing in a way if you look at it that way. Overwhelming, but also a little bit freeing to try something really different.
Yeah, that's a very healthy attitude.
We'll see how long that attitude lasts.
Right, I got you.
I don't know.
Do you think the concert experience will be different for musicians in the future? And if so, how?
I don't know. I know for me personally, I don't believe I ever took it for granted, but just maybe it's different for people who make their sole living as a musician. It's not as a special of a thing. I didn't take it for granted before, but for me, a concert now will always, always, always carry just a little extra. Wow, you know, what a privilege to get to be here. But as far as concerts themselves, I don't know. I think as a society, we're definitely moving toward, in many ways, not always, a more interactive experience. So I would love to see us try to investigate some other ways that either you can interact with the audience, or the audience is just up and a little more mobile. I don't think it's fair or needed to abandon the way things have been done. Eventually, a vaccine will appear, the pandemic will subside, and someday it will be safe and comfortable again to have concerts in the traditional setting, I think, in my opinion. Maybe not, but when that time comes, I think we should try to hold on to a little bit of this. Like, we all had to think outside the box, which at the moment is stressful because of the time and just the environment that we're in, but I think, you know, there is an opportunity to be a little freer. I don't know. I don't even know what that looks like, to be honest, but I do think it'll change a little bit. So I hope there is still an element of what we have been doing, because a lot of people, that's fulfilling and beautiful. And I don't think you should abandon that, but I do think you should keep your mind open to different ways to experience live music together. So I don't know. I'll be excited to find out.
Yeah, that's a healthy mindset, Lia, no question. What is your favorite memory of playing with ONNY?
There's a lot to pick from. Most recently, I guess, in the past season, we got to play Beethoven's Pastoral. And for me, that's always been a very special piece, because my grandmother used to sing the melody and she had words to it. And in the moment, it was very special. And actually, my grandmother passed away during COVID. My grandfather had passed. So it kind of really just like, she wasn't there in October, but she was alive when that happened, and I got to just really live in the music that was so special to her. So that was, for me, most recently. There have been there's a lot of memorable, moving experiences for Annie, but that one was most recent.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. We thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us at the level that you have, Lia.
Oh, thanks, Tim.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.